Hey, it's Jeff, and this is the video review for Warhawk. It's been a long time coming, but it's finally here. Warhawk is now available in retail and online on the PSN, and for the most part, it lives up exactly to all the demands and the expectations. Warhawk is one of those AAA multiplayer experiences that you really need to play if you happen to own a PS3. It's fast-paced action on the ground and in the air. Regardless of what you're doing, you definitely are going to have a lot of fun with this game. The gameplay is one of those situations that you don't necessarily need a plot for. Even with the removal of the single-player experience, which I know a lot of people were looking for, you really don't need it. This is one of those situations where you've got a battle that is basically as old as time itself. Red versus blue, dogs versus cats, pirates versus ninjas. All you need to know is the other team is your hated enemy and they need to die. There are a couple different modes in Warhawk. Basically, you've got your standard deathmatch, team deathmatch, capture the flag modes, which, if you've played a multiplayer game before, you pretty much understand the basics of that game system. However, there's a couple of twists to this. You've got a de facto fourth kind of mode with Dogfight, which takes you out of the ground combat and basically puts you in the air, where you're always fighting. You've got your standard deathmatch, team deathmatch, and capture the flag, and any veteran of multiplayer games are pretty much accustomed to that. There are a couple of light twists to the standard features, though. For instance, in either Deathmatch, Team Deathmatch, or Capture the Flag, a large amount of the gameplay revolves around gaining bases, capturing new checkpoints, and forcing your group's territory to expand over the entire map. It helps as kind of a primer to the new Zone mode, which is based on grabbing territory and linking up different bases to get more points by holding on to them for a long period of time. Now, gaining these bases and these checkpoints are also useful because if you happen to die, you can respawn at an advanced checkpoint. So if you're trying to make a push into enemy territory and you happen to grab a base or a checkpoint, you automatically know that you have an easier way of getting back into the fight instead of having to drag your way across half the map just to get back into the battle. Now, one of the cool things about Warhawk as far as combat is concerned is that the battles are very, very balanced. All of the 7 aerial weapons, the 9 ground weapons, the 3 vehicles, and the 3 turret types are really, really nicely balanced against each other. None of the ones that you happen to have in the game are uber powerful to the point where you never really have an idea that you have a chance against somebody else. There's so many different tactics and so many different ways that you can dispatch your enemies that it would take me way too long to even come close to describing them. It's really nice to see a balanced weapon system implemented in a multiplayer game. Now, even though the game is extremely balanced and a lot of fun to play, there are still some issues that sometimes can hamper the experience that you'll have when you're playing online. The first one is the lack of a tutorial mode. Now, if you happen to be a newcomer to Warhawk, you pretty much expect that you're going to be fragged by people. And although you happen to get some hints when you're doing certain actions, like, climbing up onto a box or possibly picking up a weapon and finding out what you're doing with it, you're not necessarily getting the nuances. Since there are no bots, there's no tutorial missions, there's no way that you can actually get in and experience this before you get thrown into the deep water, you're kind of going to have one of those sink rather than swim experiences for at least a good half hour to an hour before you start to pick up on exactly what you need to do to be successful or how you can go about it. Now, I know that a lot of people are sometimes wondering about the 6-axis controls, especially after the demo that we saw at E3. It might not necessarily be for me, but I know a lot of players that swear by those controls and feel that it gives them a little bit more accuracy. It seems like it's a little bit of a personal preference thing, but it's really nice to know that you can turn those on or off at will, and it doesn't really affect the way that the game plays. It's more of a personal preference kind of a situation. Finally, Warhawk comes in 2 separate flavors. You've got the downloadable version through the PSN or the retail version. If you happen to like having the box copy, the retail version is definitely a nice way to go. Plus, you also get a Jabber headset, so you have a way of communicating with friends online. If you happen to have a headset or you just want the game immediately, you can automatically download it from the PSN for $40. It really is one of those personal preference things. You're not necessarily finding yourself, screwed or taken advantage of if you happen to go to the retail route versus the PSN route. But it's also nice just to know that they decided to throw in an extra headset if you don't happen to have one. Overall, though, Warhawk is one of those games whose substance really matches up to the hype. It's fast-paced and fun with an extremely balanced weapon system, tight controls, and an expansive gameplay session that will easily last you hundreds of hours. I will definitely see you guys online.